Sir, good morning. Good afternoon, sir. Hello? 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 Hello?
Sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Hello?
Am I talking to Dr. V. Raju, please?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
Good
sir.
afternoon. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir, everybody. Sir, program start பண்ணலாமா sir?
Yes, as you please.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, sir, everybody. And this evening, I cordially welcome everyone to this wonderful webinar, Revelation of Kailadi Excavation. First of all, on behalf of our Department of History, Bharatdasan University, Tiruchirappalli, I would like to wish and thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, and I would like to thank our most respectable Registrar for the continuously supporting us to have the wonderful academic events. Now, I invite Dr. Y. Srinivasa Rao, Associate Professor, Head of the Department of History, Bharatdasan University. I also warmly invite Dr. P. Ashokan, Associate Professor, Department of History, Bharatdasan University, to this event. I am happy to invite our guest faculty members to this event. I invite our scholars, students, and also professors, scholars, students from the other universities, departments, and the colleges to this event. Now, finally, I cordially invite our most respected chief guest, Dr. M. Sharan, expert archaeologist Kailadi Colosseum Site. Dr. M. Sharan was formerly serving as a honorary advisor to the Ministry of the Tourism and Culture, Government of Tamil Nadu. Today, Dr. M. Sharan spent his valuable time with us by delivering lecture on the revelation of the Kailadi excavation. Once again, I thank and welcome one and all. Thank you. Sharan, sir?
Yes, can we start?
Can you start? Okay,
yes,
sir.
It deems a privilege to me to thank the Vice Chancellor, Registrar, the Head of the Department, Srinivasa Rao, and another Associate Professor of the Department of History. Above all, it is only through the invitation of the Organizing Secretary of this webinar, Dr. V. Raju. So, I am indebted to every one of you on this occasion for getting me an opportunity to share my experience and expertise in the field of archaeological excavations, in particular, Kailadi. To start with, man's emergence on Earth came up around 5 to 7 lakh years before present. To be more specific, with regard to the Indian subcontinent, the coming up of or the existence of human occupation was recorded from the site Athrambakam between 1.5 to 2 million years before present. So when we take all this scenario, it is only with the advent of man on Earth planet, the vestiges of man's utility for his support of life standard as vestiges, we are able to unearth and recover from very many sites, right from Paleolithic, Neolithic, Mesolithic, megalithic, early historical, medieval, and late medieval sites. So, in that scenario, as far Tamil land is concerned, forming part of the Peninsula region, which had thousands of early historical sites, Paleolithic, prehistoric sites, And in that context, let me point out the very first picking of the collection of the Paleolithic tool at Pallavaram in the year 1863 made or set a milestone in the annals of prehistory and thereby archaeology. So it was Robert Brookswood who collected the tool from Pallavaram Hills that led him to have an extensive archaeological exploration and probe to find the earliest vestiges of human being. And accordingly, he had visited Athrambakam, Gudiyam, and other places. At Athrambakam, he could establish, he could discover an extensive industrial site of prehistoric tools going back to 1.5 million to 2 million years before present. Similarly, after this, in the year 1903, Alexander Ree conducted the excavation at Adichanallu, which also had very novel antiquities, and to pinpoint the metal object, that of the animal, studded with semi-precious stones, and similarly, a coffin in the form of a terracotta legged sarcophagus with a ram head, which is being kept in museum as one of the rare finds. So after 1903, in the year 1945-46, Sir Mortimer Wheeler, the then Director General of Archaeology, he conducted the excavation on a scientific footing at Arikamedu. And in the annals of Indian archaeological excavations, Arikamedu opened a new vista of how scientifically to excavate and recover the antiquities. Arikamedu is one of the vital sites which had transoceanic contacts with the Greco-Roman world. The Tamils had. So when we talk of the Greco-Roman world trade, we get enough references in Sangam literature to point out Silappatikaram, Pattinapalai, Manimekalai gives vivid account of how the Sangame Cholas traded with the east and the west, and what are all the commodities which got exchanged to different parts of the world as the hub of port activity. To state, Kavadi Pumbadinam was divided into two major divisions. One is Marur Pakam, yet another is Patina Pakam. So at Marur Pakam, there were quarters meant for the Yavanas, that is the foreigners who stayed there, and similarly the kings and the royal people and the artisans lived at Patina Pakam. In between existed the Nalangadi, the day's market. So when we talk of these things, literature comes to our rescue. So after 1945, it was in the year 1950, Professor K.V. Raman, who was at Archaeological Survey of India as one of the senior officers, conducted exploration extensively in Madurai, Dindigul, Periykulam, Melur, and adjoining areas. And as a result, he had given a vital note of the sites in and around Madurai region. In such report, KLD also forms part of it. Then in the year 70s and 90s, the revisiting of the sites adjacent to Madurai undertaken, and in the year 2013 and 14, when Amarnath Ramakrishna happened to be the superintending archaeologist of Archaeological Survey of India, Excavation Branch 4 at Bangalore, had a thirst of conducting a large-scale, extensive excavation, particularly in Tamil Nadu. With that motto, he had taken up one rigorous year of exploration from the origin of River Vaigai at Vellimalai of the Western Ghats, and he travelled more than 250 kilometers, cutting across the barriers of on either banks of River Vaigai, he had located more than 290 sites, 293 sites of various phases of archaeological importance from prehistory, proto-history, early historical, medieval, and so on. So in that angle, he had selected 293 sites, and of them, around 20 sites were picked up. Of the 20 sites, Keeradi seems to be the prominent, undisturbed site to this minute, with a total area of 110 acres of land. So, 110 acres of land. So, with the undisturbed nature of this site, with well protected and well preserved condition of archaeological remnants hidden, buried in the womb of the earth, he had chosen the site by taking permission from his office and conducted the excavation in the year 2014 and 15. So in these 2 years, he had brought out 5,800 antiquities. And during the second season, that is in the year 2015, he had revealed a massive structural building completely of brick and mortar, brick mortar. He had exposed the structure to an extent of more than 600 square meters. That had given a very good leverage for the scholars to take the area as one of the vital centers with agrarian-based urban settlement supported by cottage industries. So from that year onwards, the excavation had been continuously carried out. During the fourth season, Tamil Nadu government under the leadership of T. Udayachandran sir and his team of archaeologists, and I happen to be associate of them as expert archaeologists. I've been traveling with them, associated with Keeradi site right from Amarnath period. So this is the 7th season of my visit to the site. So in all these seasons, year after year, new vestiges started coming up. During the 4th season of excavation conducted by the State Department of Archaeology, 5,820 antiquities were recovered. So all these antiquities constitute not only the materials or the things utilized by the rich people, but also of the middle income and the lower income group. So even the commoners' products and their things were antiquities were recovered. So as a result, we could see the conglomeration of the societal hierarchy of the higher-ups, the middle income and the lower income, artisans and the royal community people, and above all, the agrarian society, which supported the entire caste of its what we call continuation of the standard of living in Keeradi. During the 5th season, many structural remains in continuation of the 2nd season work were exposed. 2 such major brick structural activity is one lengthy wall of more than 16 meters, more than 50 feet, with 7 courses of bricks, each brick measured 36 into 24 by 7 to 7 or 6 centimeters in measurement. So which is naturally 4 or 5 times bigger than the normal brick of the present day. So which are akin to that of Kaveri Pumbettinam. When I talk, when we say of or recall the excavation at Kavaripatnam, which was conducted between 62 and 73, which had revealed 3 major structural activity of completely of bricks and what you call the clay pasting or the binding material. So those structures constitute, one is the Buddha Vihara, yet another is the reservoir constructed at the estuary point of a river, Kaveri entering into the coastal waters of Bay of Bengal, and the prominent structure is nothing but the wharf, wherein they used to tie the smaller vessels which are meant to carry the loads or the cargoes from the harbor area to the larger ships, and from the larger ships the commodities should be brought in. from distant lands. In order to quote, let me give you the exact version of Pattinapalai statement. நீரின் வந்த நிமிர்பனி புறவியும் காலின் வந்த கருங்கரி மூடையும் வடமலை பிறந்த மணியும் பொன்னும் குடமலை பிறந்த ஆரமும் மகிழும் தெரிகடல் முத்தும் குணகடல் துயிரும் கங்கை வாரியும் காவிரி பயனும் ஈழத்துணவும் காடகுத்து ஆக்கவும் அரியவும் பெரியவும் நெறியை ஏந்தி வளந்தலை மயங்கிய நனந்தலை வருகு. So Marur Pakam is the adjacent township of Kavaripumbuttinam, very near the coastal waters. Maru is the shortened terminology of Marur Pakam, where all these commodities from distant lands have come to Pumbuhar. So in that way, how bustling Pumbuhar might have been 2,300 years ago. So it was the wharf which contained two broken portions of the ports wherein the smaller vessels to be tied. When these samples have been taken to the laboratory for carbon dating, which had given the date as 280 BC, 285 BC. So based on that, the literature, Sangam literature was given the chronology setting as early as 3rd century BC. Prior to that, people were of the opinion that they do not rely on the content of Sangam literature, although they have aptly portrayed what had happened in that contemporary level, and people do not have a tendency to accept readily that it belongs to the early centuries of the Christian era. So Kavaripumbuttinam has set the date of chronology for Sangam literature as 3rd century BC. After Kavaripumbuttinam excavation, it is only Kiradi which had taken the date of the Sangam age society as early as 6th century BC, because during the 4th season, from a depth of 3.53 meters, the carbon sample which had been sent to Florida Beta Analytical Center, they have given the date as 580 BC. So I am giving you the date on par with the scientific evidences. It's not like what you call fictitious or relative dating I am giving you. So Kiradi has pushed the earliest date of urban settlement of the South Indian urban settlement pattern as early as 6th century BC. Prior to this, scholars from North India, some of the scholars from North India and elsewhere, other global scenario, were of the impression that South India, in particular Tamil Nadu, although very many excavations like Urayur, Kavaripumbuttinam, Arikamedu excavation was conducted in 1945-46, and thereupon between 1989 and 92 was conducted by Madras University in collaboration with the Pennsylvania University. So irrespective of the structural remains which we have unearthed and exposed it to the world, people were of the opinion that they cannot readily recognize that the sporadic existence and the emergence of existence of these structural remains, they were unable to recognize the urbanization of Tamil Nadu, South India in particular. So when we talk of the urban factors and the civilization of the pan-Indian setup, immediately our imagination will naturally get driven to the earliest phase, the Indus, Harappan, Mohenjo-daro-Harappa sites. The date of it is 5,500 years before present. So the earliest date in recent years has been pushed to 7,000 BC. So when such is the scenario, that was the first phase of urbanization. So around 1,500 BC or 1,000 BC, there occurred between 1,500 to 1,000. There was a shift due to natural calamity at the Harappan sites. People could have migrated to the Gangetic Dome around 1,000 BC. So that is 3,000 years before present. That is that in archaeological parlance, we state it as the second phase of urbanization. So when we talk of second phase of urbanization, and we get evidences in Tamil Nadu and South India as early as 3rd century or 4th century BC. So there is a gap of 600 years between the earliest date of what you call Kaveri Pumbadinam, carbon dating, and some of the paleographical evidences of early Tamil Brahmi inscriptions recovered in and around Madurai city, Mangulam, and other places. But Kiradi has proved its might and set a milestone of taking the date as early as 6th century BC. So, as we are very near, with a gap of 400 years between the second phase of Gangetic Dome urbanization to that of South India, in particular Tamil Nadu, and moreover, in this context, let me point out the carbon material which had been sent to the Beta Analytical Center has been recovered at a depth of 3.5 meters, while there are two more layers underneath. And during last season, we have recovered samples from the lowest strata of the cultural deposit of Kiredi and the adjoining sites. So when such dates come, which will definitely push the date of Kiredi and its cluster sites to some more centuries, and it will get near to the second phase, very near to the second phase of urbanization as that of the Gangetic Dome. So in that scenario, Kiredi has proven its might of unraveling 5,820 antiquities during the fourth season of excavation conducted by the State Department of Archaeology, Government of Tamil Nadu, and the able leadership of the Commissioner of the Department, T. Ujaychandran, Dr. Shivanandam, and a gamut of archaeologists indulged in their day-to-day activity meticulously with meticulous involvement and interest. And similarly, during fifth season, a lengthy wall of 16 meters, few tanks constructed with the help of bricks, and muddy paste as binding materials were also recovered, and terracotta pipes of two different types were recovered, and above all, there was a gemstone which was shaped out of a cornelian bead, which has come all the way from Gujarat, because here we do not have such what you call raw material, and hills do not yield such raw material. That's why here comes once again the verbatim of Pattinapalai between the lines 185 to 193. Neerin Manda Nimirpari Puravi. So, Nimirpari Puravi, the highly bred horses which had come through the coastal waters from Arabia, Neerin Manda Nimirpari Puravi, Kalin Manda Karunguri Mudayu, through the inland channels, because in the early days, the river courses of the inland within Tamil Nadu, it acted as transportation, mode of transportation through which people carried with the ferries and smaller boats, they brought the pepper, Karungari Mudayum. Neerin Manda Nimirpari Purayum, Kalin Manda Karungari Mudayum, Vadamalai Piranda Maniyum Punnam. Vadamalai, so from the northern hills. So Gujarat is one of the vital area which yields even today the cornelian and other semi-precious stone. So the raw materials were brought from North India, Vadamalai Piranda Maniyum Punnum, gold and semi-precious stones from North India, and Kodamalai Piranda Aramum Agilum. Kodamalai is from the Western Hill. Aram is a kind of tree. Agil is nothing but. Kodamalai means eastern. Aram means it's a kind of wood. When it is burnt, it gives an incense which is good for health. Agil means it's a kind of cloth. Both are trees. Aram is sandalwood. Agil also some kind of wood. Terigadal Muttum Kunagadal Tuhirum. Terigadal. So from the extreme southern portion, coastal waters, Terigadal Muttu, from Korkai, the pearls were brought in to the port of Kaveri Pumbadinam, Punagadal. That is from the eastern side, Tuhir. From the eastern coastal waters, cutting across the waters, So here is a muslin cloth, probably from China, and adjoining areas might have reached Gangai Variyum, Kaveri Payanam, from the commodities of the Ganges and the producers of the Kaveri, which have also been brought in to the port town of Kaveri Pumbatiyanam. Idathu Unavum Kadagathu Akkamum. The food commodities from Sri Lanka and the finished products from Kedah, which is nothing but the present day Burma. Ariyavum Piriyavum in smaller quantities and larger heaps, which had reached the port town of Marur Pakam, a division of a division of Kaveri Pumbatiyanam. So this was the verbatim which gives the vivid account of the commodities which had come from the east, from the west. And there are also references in the same literature as well as Silappatikaram. When we look into such phrases like Ponnodu vandu Kariyodu Peyarundu, Pariyodu vandu Kariyodu Peyarundu, these phrases clearly gives indication. Yavana is the terminology to refer the foreigners. So in this context, Yavana to be related either to the Greco-Romans when they are equated or related to Ponnodu vandu Kariyodu Peyarundu. The Greco-Romans entered into the southern peninsula region and cut across the Palghat passes, entered into the coastal town, and they laden with what you call the pepper bags, returned back to their Greco-Roman cities, Athens, Sparta, and other parts of their domain. So as a result, during such trade activity, transoceanic activity, Augustus had passed an ordinance in his empire stating, requesting the traders or the commerce people not to venture trade with the east, particularly Tamil Nadu, in procuring too many bags of pepper, just citing the reason. Just because of this trade, much of the treasury got lessened and it has dwindled. So he had made a request in the form of an ordinance. Hereafter, the traders of this country are requested not to venture just for the procurement of too many bags of paper and make the dwindling of the treasury. So, Kiredi during the fifth season, sixth season continued. During the last season, instead of concentrating on only one site, the major site of to stretchable to a land of more than 110 acres across 5 kilometers north-south orientation, with its natural paraphernalia like Manalur Kanmai on the east and Kondagai Kanmai on the northwest. And when we take into account of these natural barriers, it becomes quite obvious naturally in that contemporary level, that is 2500 years before present, there could have been supportive settlements around. So with that scenario, from last year, having already explored the entire area, we have chosen 4 more sites. They are Kondagai, Manalur, Agaram. These existed with a close proximity of 2 or 2.5 kilometers across. When we have the bird's view, hardly 700 meters across from Kiredi to Manalur, Kiredi to Agaram, and similarly Kiredi to Kondagai. So in all these sites, excavation were conducted as Kiredi cluster sites from since last season, and the same has been continued even this season for the 7th consecutive season. At Kondagai, the burial urns and pit burials were unearthed. So in order to have more scientific probe and scientific support, from last season, the Department of Archaeology, State Department of Archaeology has collaborated with Madurai Kamaraj University Biotechnology Department. In order to have the DNA analysis, instead of taking the samples all the way to foreign nations, with the aid of 3 crore rupees, by the government of Tamil Nadu, a lab was set up in Madurai Kamaraj University and they have taken the samples of last season, and they will also be taking the samples of this season too. You know, to have the DNA support. So, in this context, the other agencies which supported and supporting the scientific probe of the archaeological vestiges which we unearthed, like the Central University of Tamil Nadu, Tiruvallur, for its geomorphology investigations, then the Indian Institute of Geomagnetism, Navi Mumbai, for magnetometer survey. Similarly, the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, Hyderabad, Telangana, to have the evolutionary and medical genetics study. Then French Institute of Pondicherry, aid is taken for pollen analysis. Then similarly, the Deccan College, postgraduate and research institute, Yerawada, Pune, for conducting human osteology, bioanthropology, bioanalysis, AMS dating for bones. And similarly, metallurgical studies were conducted with the aid of a National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, Karnataka. With regard to minerals and soil analysis, the department is taking the support of Vellore Institute of Technology. And similarly, for unmanned aerial vehicle photography, Institute of Remote Sensing, Anna University, has come to the rescue of the department. And besides this, to have the prehistoric, what you call expansion and the experience of the provenance of its impact, Sharma Center for Heritage Education was also incorporated in the gamut of the scientific institutions. By taking these assistances, the excavation is properly being conducted for the 7th season. During the 5th season, during the first season, 5,800. During the first and second season, Archaeological Survey of India was conducting the excavation, 5,800 antiquities, and second season, very many structural building activities came into being. And when we talk of the Tamil Nadu probe, Tamil Nadu State Department of Archaeology's probe, it becomes so vital. It was only the result of the 4th season of Tamil Nadu Archaeological Vestiges at Kiradi, with recovered antiquity of 5,820 in number, and in the second season, lengthy wall structures like terracotta ring wells, then tanks, and what we call tub containing the raw materials meant to extract silica and thereby to make beads. So Kiradi as a cluster site is a prominent site and promising site. Now you are looking at the map of Kiradi. You can find it is exactly 2.5 kilometers south of the present day course of River Vaigai. Invariably here, at the depth of 4 to 4.5 meters, at the lowest level of all the trenches which we laid out during the 5th season, more than 50 trenches were laid, and underneath existed the natural river deposit, river sand, giving an indication the earliest course of River Vaigai could have had its course in this area, which is at present running 2.5 kilometers north of the present site, Kiradi. This is the aerial photography. Unmanned aerial, unmanned vehicle aerial photography supported by Anna University. You can see the trenches. Are you able to see?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's with the palm group all around.
Yeah.
And this is the carbon sample which we have sent to the Beta Analytical Center at Florida of United States of America, which had given the date as we have sent many samples. This particular sample at the depth of 3.53 meters was assigned the scientific date as 580 BC. So based on this date, we have given the date as 6th century BC. And this is one of the ring bells which we unearthed from Kiredi with 7 courses of terracotta ring bell. So here, one thing is very clear. People who lived 2,600 years before present or 2,500 years before present had the tendency to tap the natural resource of tapping the natural water or groundwater by constructing or erecting the ring wells. It shows the advanced level and standard of living of that particular people. So to compare it in the modern scenario, when I was in childhood in a village, which is a major village in Kumbakonam, from where I hail from, in our street, although there existed nearly 50 houses, only few houses had the well. In rest of the houses, we had only the hand pressed pumps, in order to tap the water from the water table of say 10 to 15 feet below the ground level, below surface level. So when such is the scenario of the present day, think of the people at Kiredi, Manalur, in a closer area of hardly 500 square meters, 7 ring bells were unearthed. One of the ring bells had 26 rings, one placed over the other. So it shows how much meticulous they are and how standard they had their living at these sites. So next is the visual of the closer view of the animal bone found in situ in one of the sites, one of the trenches of Kiredi during the 4th season, which is of what you are cattle. And with regard to the mortal remains of the animals, very many bones were collected, and among them, more than 60% constituted that of the cattle, supporting the agrarian activity of the people who lived at Kiredi. And rest of them belong to wild boar, peacock, and antlers. This is one of the structural remains, 2 few meters with 5 courses of bricks. Each brick measured 36 centimeter into 24 by 7 to 6 centimeters, which is on par with the bricks found at other early historical sites of Tamil Nadu like Avaripumattinam, Arikemedu, Urayur, and other sites. This is the closer view of the brick structure. Binding materials just the clay, probably with the herbal extracts and what do you call jaggery juice, jaggery paste, in order to bind these one layer or one course of the bricks piled over it with the binding material in order to strengthen and give strength to them. And this is one of the sherds which was recovered during the 4th season, which contained the graffiti of a fish in with the linear sketches of what you call the scaling. And this is another site. One thing we like to point out, Kiredi during 4th season alone had unearthed more than 50 sherds. In total, 56 Tamil Brahmi sherds, not Tamil sherds were recovered, because Kiredi is the site which had precursor letters of even prior to Ashokan Brahmi letters. So that's why we made up our mind when we were about to prepare the internal report of what we call Kiredi site. We come to the conclusion, why should we continue the same old tradition of stating these letters on paleographical grounds as Tamil Brahmi? Because as most of the letters seems to be precursors of Ashokan Brahmi. So in that way, we started stating as Tamil letters were written on 56 sherds, and most of them had the words reading or spelling the names of Tamil people as Adan, Kuviranadan, Sandan, Satan, Yaman, and so on and so forth. Here, the closer view of the shirt, you can find the closer view of the shirt. It is Adan. It is one of the earliest way of writing. And this is another shirt. This is black and red bear. Because with regard to the early historical site, the occurrence of black and red bear, black bear, red should be bear, considered to be the what do you call landmark, or what do you call a relative touchstone of assessing the relative dating of any site. When we talk of pottery, which has come all the way from Neolithic phase, that's why in archaeological terminology, potteries are considered to be the alphabets of archaeology, because right from Neolithic age, pottery came into being, and as and when the phases of age and culture changed, the production of these pottery also changed their technology. Accordingly, Neolithic phase contained grey ware, burnished grey ware, and in the next phase, megalithic, Iron Age related early historical site had very many thousand sherds, or very bulky nature of what you call black and red ware, black ware, and red ware, along with red ware, coarse red ware. So this gives a relative tendency of fixing the date. So here, black and red ware, it is not by painting they have done it. It is by dint of firing, inverted firing technique. So due to inverted firing technique, with the easily burnable or fire catching materials like the husk, or the highly drawed grasses will be kept inside, and when they are lit fire in the kiln, the inverted nature will catch fumes, and the fumes will be in the form of smoke. Due to the smoke, the carbon deposition will be more on the inner side and the fringe end of the rims on the outer. As a result, it will make the entire ware as jet black, while the flame which is getting shooting up on the exterior level of the vessels, due to availability of oxygen, will turn the outer surface as red hot. That's why they become black and red. This is the rim portion. Here you see the top is the rim portion, which is in continuation of the inner has become black, and this is the red portion, which is the external outer, and it is on the external side, outer side. On the external side, they have written. So at Kidadi, out of the 56 sherds, 50 different handwritings were traced, which means the literacy state of Kidadi people as early as 2,500 years ago shows the high literacy level which existed at Kidadi. Here you can see all the sherds placed in group. This is the crumbled state of one of the pot due to the compression of the overlying deposit. Luckily, we have retrieved with its actual breakage happened earlier. So this is another larger bowl of a black and red ware, which is considered to be one of the largest in situ unbroken bowl unearthed from the excavation. This is one of the during the 4th season, 2 trenches with an area of 5 square meters to a thickness of 70 to 1 meter yielded few lorry loads of pottery dumped in those earlier levels. At the lower level, you can find they were kept buried. So this gives an indication how much production they could have had in those years, when such is the condition, just from 2 trenches of 5 meters by 5 meters to a thickness of 70 to 1 meter think of the production of the potters supplying to the requirement of the fellow residents of the nearby as well as the far off localities. As far like the city state of Madurai. Because when we talk of Madurai, we get little references from Madurai Kanchi and Paripadal. Paripadal gives a vivid account about the flow and the charm of what you call River Vaigai and the settlements on either side. Similarly, Madurai gives what you call a full narration about the palatial walls on which the waters of River Vaigai lashing on. So, with regard to the other material remains which we have unearthed, here you can have a look of the spindle bulbs, which are the rudimentary or the basic unit of weaving industry. It is a tool which is nothing but a terracotta bead like with a hole at the center, and here you can see the central rod which is of iron, as it is partly broken, majority of them broken and got stuck due to the rusting found attached to the inner hole, and here there will be a disc like in order to hold the bead, and at the top there will be a long iron rod as continuation of the same iron nail with a hook, fish like hook, with the hook type. People used to twist the fibers of cotton. The fibers will, when they get twisted, it will get fined, and that will become a thread, and too many bundles of these threads will naturally be taken to the yarn for handloom in order to convert them as cloths to be worn as undergarments or uppergarments for the early human beings of the society. And underneath you can see the bone objects, and at the extreme end you can find an offset portion of the bone object, which gives the advancement of these bone objects. Hunting might have been continued right from Paleolithic, Neolithic, and even in the early historical Iron Age period. They have continued such practice even now in the Olympics. Archery is considered to be one of the vital games. So even to this date, hunting is considered as one of the vital games and practice. So the next one, this is the pestle and mortar. This is made of stone for grinding medicines or for grinding what you call grains. So such mechanism and such what you call appliance they had in the early centuries of the Christian era. The adjacent picture is that of the broken portion of a curvilinear ivory comb, which shows the richness of the society who were using these combs in order to decorate their headdress and look pretty in front of their male companions, and to have what you call better standard of living. This is this we call it as a pot-bellied narrow necked jar. This is nothing but the prototype of the modern day flask. So in early days, they had manufactured, they had produced such kind of ware in order to retain the temperature. So when we pour hot water for few hours, the heat of the heatness of the hot water will be maintained for few hours. Similarly, when we pour normal or chill water, that will also get maintained. So next to the same is the bead string of very many shapes and colors. You can see at the central point is the colored beads of yellow in color. They are none others than the parsimony. In what you call the tribal language, when we talk of Kuravan Kurati, we used to make what you call comment. Parsimony, Usimani, Bangiliyo, Ayalo. So that's the way they used to sing in the early 60s, 70s when they come to villages, because they will be having these Pasaimani. Pasaimani has got the terminology as character as parsimony, and in fact they were selling it during 1670s. So these Pasaimanies were manufactured, and they have been unearthed from KD, excavated finds. Not only the commoners' products or some other royal, you can even see the precious metal objects were recovered during the 4th season alone. You can see highly decorated and craftsmanship golden ornament like pendants, star, broken portion of a ring, and needle, and plate, bead, and broken portion of a bead. So this clearly gives or reflects what sort of society KD had in early centuries of the Christian era, prior to 2000 years before present, that is 2500 years. And this is another variety of pasimony, which is of what you call pale wax color. This is the closer view of one of the dice shaped out of ivory, which contained 6 sides. So it is a cubical dice which contains 6 sides. In all the 6 sides, they have inlaid concentric, a dot with the concentric circle pattern. They have meticulously crafted it. You can see 1 circle, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is to be played. தாயம் இப்ப நகர்த்தணும் பாருங்க. அத மாதிரி early days they had their pastimes, பாண்டி விளையாட்டு. So they practiced. So royal people might have used it for spending their leisure times usefully and to make their brain capacity to get improved as a brain teaser. And at the lower level, you can see too many chessmen like coins. They are none other than Sokatan Kai. And adjacent to it, the sillu, Panti Vilayat sillu, which are invariably round in shape. And they were mostly shaped out of the potsherds, broken potsherds of various varieties. And in some cases, purposefully, some of the potters, because of their acquaintance and closeness with the rich people, they have shaped purposeful terracotta hopscotches, and they have offered it to the children of the rich people. So such hopscotches were also being recovered, and these Sokatan Kai have the shapes similar, but only according to the shapes and the height. They can be differentiated either as the queen or the king, or the elephant or the fawn or the horse or the sepoys. At the top row, you can see the highly shaped, globular shaped, semi-precious stone beads, agate and cornelian crystal beads were recovered. So here the lines of Pattinapalli, that is when I talk about Kaveri, no, it comes to a Rekshu. Vadamalai Paranda Maniyum Punnu. So all the way from North India, from North Indian origin, from the North Indian hills, these raw materials were brought in, and the craftsmen who were well versed in such art, they have recovered, they have shaped it and given a fine shape, which ought to be utilized by the people as their what you call jewelry. And underneath, you can see the rouleted ware. Yes, prior to Archimede excavation, people were of the opinion that rouleted ware was considered as one of the foreign ware. But when we re-excavated in the year 89 and 92, due to the occurrence of pre-firing graffiti on one of the shirts, I had given a statement to our former professor, my mentor and philosopher guide, Professor K.V. Raman. I stated to him, sir, as we get the pre-firing graffiti on this shirt, it becomes so evident. Definitely, this is an indigenous wear, and hereafter, it is not that much reliable to state every variety of rouleted ware as foreign. Of course, there is a foreign rouleted ware. When we get such words, we will definitely state it as it is imported rouleted ware. But when we get the majority of the words, majority of the potsherds with the raw material taken from the lagoons and the adjoining coastal water belts of what you call well navigated clay, and which has its unique fineness to the feel of the touch. So when we get such variety of pottery, it is better to call them as an indigenously imitated ware, indigenously made imitated ware, because rouleting is a technique which has come all the way from Greco-Roman world, which we do not hope which we do not have in the early centuries. So in that way, rough-legged bear has also been recovered. Few Araten bears. Araten is an imported bear, which has come all the way from Rome, Italy, because this particular bear was manufactured at a place called Ariso in Italy between 26 and 50 AD. So whenever the traders, for their own consumption, they brought some vessels for their own consumption or utility. When such vessels got broken, they could have left these broken pieces. And when we go for excavation, we retrieve such a few pieces. And when we retrieve such pieces, definitely it talks about the transoceanic contacts of the Indian Peninsula region with that of the Greco-Roman world and the other world. Similarly, when we get Celadon ware, in some of the sites we have recovered Celadon ware. So when we get Celadon ware, we could relate the transoceanic contacts with the East, particularly with China and Southeast Asia. And Celadon ware was a particular ware which was very much prevalent in China during the early centuries. That is during the medieval times of their civilizations. So terracotta images were also recovered, and such images were completely full, and some of them hollow, and there are also models. And on the inner side, they have also given some shaping as that of a child. So this gives a very good leverage how they could make images of the existing human forms, royal personalities, animal forms, and what you call the impressions to be taken as a mold. From the mold, they can make the positive images. So even now, when we talk of the mold images during Playar Chaturthi, there are ready reckoner images of Playar out of the molds, and the cost of it which will naturally be cheaper than the completely shaped, what do you call images of Playar. This is the yard. So generally, from every pick, we used to collect with the details of what you call breadth, length, breadth, and depth of every trench with its orientation, with the collection at every heap will naturally be taken for washing. Twice, thrice, they will be washed, and thereupon they will be classified according to the size and shapes and the varieties. Based on them, based on this statistical analysis, we will prepare a chart and on the shirts, on the exterior and interior, the colorization and what you call decorations in the form of pinched linear sketches, paintings, everything will naturally be studied in a detailed manner and recorded properly for report writing at a later point of time.
Thank you, bro, sir. Sir? Sharon, sir? You will finish? Hello? Sir, Sharon, sir? Hello? Hello?
Left பண்ணிட்டாரு இன்னும் இருப்பாரு. You just keep asking. Yeah.
Okay.
Sharon, sir?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Sir, Sharon, sir? Hello?
சார் கால் பண்ணுங்க ராஜு சார்.
ஓகே. கால் பண்றேன்.
கால் பண்ணுங்க, ஃபோன்ல கால் பண்ணுங்க.
ஓகே சார். Hello, Sharon sir.
ಅವ್ರು ಇರ್ತಾರ
Sharon sir.
എന്നോಡದು
Sorry for the inconvenience caused. Is it audible? Hello? Is it audible?
Yes.
So from the earlier illustration, here you can find the ring well into the layers of a layer 2, 3, and 4. Similarly, there is another trench with the ring well erected at the natural sand deposit. So these are all the unexcavated area here at the lowest level. Below 4 meters, they have erected this ring well at Kiri. Is it audible?
Yes, audible.
Okay, okay.
Sorry,
And
audible,
here,
sir.
yes, here you can see the closer view of the natural photography of the ring well, which we have shown in the linear sketches drawing. You can find. So this is almost the riverine deposit sand, and into which it enters to few more meters, and they have erected this ring well within the sand. Just a minute. So with regard to Tamil Brahmi, I was referring about 56 shirts and 50 with 50 different handwritings. Here you can see how meticulously they have written. You can find each letter has its own way of handwriting, which doesn't resemble the other one, except the lettering pattern style. So in this case, um, the very evidence of rocket edict number 2 and 13 of Ashoka, who happened to be the emperor who ruled a vast stretch of Indian empire around 2300 years before present, that is 3rd century BC. He was ruling the entire Indian subcontinent except the extreme portion of South India. And apart from India, he also annexed, he had a sway over Sri Lanka and Southeast Asian countries. So although he was a mighty emperor who was unable to penetrate into the Tamil land, and in fact, these two rock edicts, which I just referred as major rock edict number 2 and 13, gives clear indication they were none others than the royal charters being promulgated by the court directions of Emperor Ashoka. They were chiseled on the rock beds, and they convey the message. My southern boundary comprises the kingdoms ruled by Sola, Pandya, Keralaputro, Satyaputro, and Tambapandi. So, which gives a clear-cut evidence that he was unable to penetrate the Tamil land 2000 years before present. In other way, that although the Tamil rulers who lived in different pockets of the existed Tamil land, namely Sera Sola Pandya and what you call Tagadura Yanda, Adiyaman, Marabinar. So, although they ruled different localities of the state, they had given a stiff resistance to the common alien, and as a result, Ashoka was unable to penetrate in. And it's because of that we sporadically have Buddhist remains. While when we have enough Jain remains and relics in very many places, only at selected points we have the Buddhist relics and remains in Tamil Nadu. So he sent his son and daughter, Mahendra and Sangamitra, on religious mission to convey the philosophy of Buddha to every portion of his country and every annexed territory of Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. That's why Buddhism got spread and which has become the stately religion of Southeast Asian countries, China, Japan. Although it had its origin in in India at Padaliputra, the present day Patna. So, on paleographical grounds, these letters are precursors of Ashokan Brahmi. That's why we have stated as Tamili. You can see Kubiranathan, Adan, Sandan, Satan. So here are the beads. You can have the closer view of the cornelian bead. Another bead. This is the quartz bead. And this is the crystal bead. And glass beads. And similarly, soapstone. Soapstone is the weakest stone. And terracotta bead. Hopscotches, collection of hopscotches which we have recovered, unearthed. And these are all the gamesmen. Chokatan Kai. And these are all the iron objects used as the portion of billhooks, sickles, and rings to be fastened for the defensive and offensive weapons, and in some cases to be hanged in the doors. This is one of the lengthy shed containing a rod like, probably scepter like iron object. Here you can find the terracotta ear ornaments. They are none others than the advanced version of Patrakundala. Patrakundala is a Sanskrit term, but prior to the entry of the Pallavas in the Tamil land, we had only Tamil as a language to quote the Bhakti literature of the Saivite mendicants and the Vaishnavite mendicants, namely the Nayanmas and Alvars, who had sung in praise of the respective divinities of Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu in their own poetical phrases. Everybody has sung only in pure Tamil phrases. And as a result, most of the places of Tamil place names existed till 7th century only in Tamil name. To quote Vedaranyam, it's a Sanskritized terminology prior to the Sanskritization. Before the 7th century or before 8th century, it existed as Tirumaraikadu. Vrudachalam is a Sanskritized form. Prior to 8th century, it existed and it was sung by the Nayanmars as a Tirumudugundram, Udaye Isan, Tirumudugundram Var Isan, Kumbakonam had been aptly quoted in terminology as Tirukudamukku, Udandaivar Isan. So, in this manner, almost all the places had a pure virgin nature of Tamil till 6th, 7th century. It was only the entry of the Pallavas into the Tamil land as non-Tamil speaking rulers got influenced, and as a result, the Sanskritization came into being into the Tamil land. In a similar way, this Patrakuntalam is the later version, but the earlier version is the terracotta ear ornament, which is on par with the present day lengthy pendulum-like ear ornaments worn preferably by the old ladies of the extreme south, stretching from Trichy to Kanyakumari. You can see some of the old ladies wearing oscillating pendulum-like ear ornaments. They call it as Tandati or Pampadam. So these were the earliest form of Pampadams, which were worn by the early century ladies in order to project themselves as one of the beautiful ladies among the men folk. These are all the spindle balls, and here you come across the broken portions of the conch shells, and they were cut out of the conches. So when we talk of this, Thiruvilayadar Puranam comes into a rescue. There is a statement. There is a dialogue between Nakiran and Sivaruman. When Lord Shiva opens his third eye, Nakiran, having seen the third eye and recognized him as Lord Shiva, he immediately converses in a beautiful poetical language, stating, Netrikanai Katinum Kutram Kutrame, Netrik Katinum Kutram Kurpame. And in the dialogue, he states, Sangu Arkar Kulam, Younger Kulam. I belong to the community of Valayar. Valayar is one of the communities which are very much associated of procuring only the conches. That's why Valamburi Changailna go to Eduthu. Valamburi is a special kind of conch. And like pearl fishing, conch diving is also one of the vibrant activity which had been eulogized in Sangam literature. Even now, such practice is being conducted with this people of this community, and they retrieve these conches, and they have the what you call craftsmanship of cutting the conches and shaping into bangles and bangles, beads, and stud beads. So, in order to make the jewelry of their own domain, they cut the conches. In that scenario, Thiruvilayadar conversation between Nakiran and Lord Shiva gives a leverage, gives and some kind of what you call contextual episode. Sanga Arkar Kulam, Younger Kulam, Sangarana Arki Yedu Kulam. So these were cut out of the conches procured from the deep waters of the coastal area. These are all the images recovered, terracotta images of animals, human beings, and molds. Here you can find the horns of various animals and antlers. So cattle constituted the major majority, and this is the picture of the coins. One such coin is square in shape, which is the earliest form of what you call Sangamish coin. Preferably after treatment, it will reveal the content on the harbors and the rivers. So, which had been sent for chemical analysis, because as the thickness is shallow, we cannot give high dilute. We have to treat it gently with a highly diluted solution. So methodically we have been doing it. And this is the one of the Panchmount coins. So here we have recovered coins from Neolithic phase to early historical, then medieval times. And these coins belong to the medieval imperial Pandya times, medieval Pandya times. And based on the graffiti marks, graffiti sun symbol, this is a spade-like, and you can find another wheel-like. So there are. This is the ladder pattern, and we have the comparative study with that of the letters, because generally, to start with, there is a study simultaneously going on throughout India and in foreign context to compare the earlier prototype of what you call graffiti marks, which has lineage towards the formation of the letters around 6th, 7th century BC. So prior to that, Indus script is also to be deciphered. Still, the decipherment of Indus script is also under what you call research level. That's why of all the civilizations, Indus civilization is considered to be in the proto-historic level, whereas other civilizations have got revealed of their what you call writing patterns completely read. But with regard to Indus, it is under the research level. In the near future, it will also be deciphered. So with these few words, let me get into some of the pictures of the cluster sites. From last season, we have taken it up. This is once again the aerial view of the same. Here you can find the mortal remains of the bodies contemporary to Kiridi site dating, which we have unearthed from a pit, because we have been instructed by the scientists to have mask, headgears, gloves, and with sanitized, highly sanitized tools. Only with such tools we have to recover. And here you can see the closer view of the same. A skeleton is being examined meticulously, and it is to be retrieved, to be sent to the laboratory, and which has been inspected by the team of archaeologists. This is the engineering drawing with what you call grid pattern. And one of the senior scientists, senior archaeologists, Dr. Rajan, is also examining it. He is one of my seniors. And he is Dr. Pichepan, who is conducting the DNA study on behalf of Madurai Kamaraj University for the sake of State Department of Archaeology. You can see the bones retrieved in a articulated trace without making it contaminated, so that we will have the better study. Here you can find what you call a tub-like portion similar to that of the modern day what you call restroom like. Probably they have a small brick to be seated and they can have. So on the other side it's a large lengthy wall that can protect the vision of the other side. So they can have a bath. So here we started retrieving the urns and the grave goods. So one such urn with the lid. So in one of the urns from Kondagai, a squatting posture, you can see the closer view. Squatting posture of human being was recovered during last season. These are all the beads. During last season, we have recovered from Kiridi. banded agate, carnelian, tubular beads, and what you call barrel bead. This is a Tamil Brahmi shirt. Tamil Brahmi shirt. This is the seal. We have the replica on either side. These are all the weighing units. It is globular, perfectly well lathe turned with one side flat. Most of the weighing 300 grams, 150 grams, 8 grams, 20 grams and 8 grams. So, which in or in terms of sovereign. So 8, so multiples of 4, 8 and something it goes on. So accordingly, the goldsmith can easily weigh to the tune of 300 grams or more than that. So this is one of the urns with the grave goods or the vessels kept inside. Another urn, when the top has been removed or the lid is removed, you can find the skull. From the top we have taken. These are all the broken portion of the lid. This is one of the animal remains, probably that of a bovine, the vertebra with its what you call the pelvic portion. You can find the closer view of a child, another child buried in a pit. These are the finds from Agaram, one of the cluster sites on the eastern extent of a kilometer east of Kiradi. These are all the what you call existence or occurrence of what you call microliths. But invariably in the neighbor localities we do not have the debitages of such microlithic traces. But even then they could have used it as a matter of possession and antique nature. They could have brought it from the adjoining area and kept it as a mark of what you call pride. And this is one of the stone axe, similar to that of what you call the Neolithic hand axe. This is the fluter core, and out of these cores, these tools were shaped. So we get such what you call remains of the microlithic traces. So in that way, Agaram gains momentum of the continuity of Neolithic to Iron Age to early historical. So here at Agaram, we have found one pellet coin shaped very similar to that of a chili seed. And you can find, even with the smallest shape, you can find that of what you call an insect being carved. On the other side, you can find some designs. And these are all the smoking pipes we have recovered from Agaram area. Smoking pipes. And this is the Celadon where I was talking about. So which has come all the way from China during 12th, 13th century. This is Manalur. This is the trough. And into which you can find the vessels. And these are all the finds from Manalur with the modern, very recent English coins. So from the upper level, we started retrieving. These are all the broken portions of the what we call smoking pipe. This is a metal ring, preferably copper. They could have been owned by the people. So with this, let me come to the concluding part. So as for Kiradi and cluster sites are concerned, it had given a very good milestone setting as far chronology is concerned, and which has revelations in the form of the extent or close proximity of what you call the second phase of urbanization on par with or closer to that of the Gangetic Dome, which got migrated around 1000 BC from the early phase of urbanization from the Indus. And secondly, paleographically, this proved its might as precursor of Ashokan Brahmi characters. So in Tamil, we had pure Tamil characters typically written with the concerned stroke, which is so primeval and prior to the Ashokan way of writing. And here I like to mention, as far the Ashokan Brahmi is concerned, it uses invariably in all the inscriptions, it uses the conjunct consonants. Conjunct consonant is nothing but the kutteluthu. For example, if you like to write a word, patram, Pa, It, Ra, Im. 4 letters or 5 letters. So in that case, when we write in Tamil, we write it with 5 letters or 4 letters. But in Sanskrit or in any other Indian languages, this conjunct component, that is Itra, Itira, so gets constituted as a one letter and takes its form. So when this comes only at a later point of time, and above all, the stroke itself seems to be prior to that of the Ashokan Brahmi. That's why paleographically the letters found on the potsherds given a clear indication that they are definitely of Tamil characters, and as a result, let us talk or let us call such letters as Tamili rather than Tamil Brahmi. So with this revelations and the near future, with the revelation of the genomic studies, we will be able to add some more information. What type of genetical aspect which existed here will add some more color and color to the civilization which existed 2600 years before present will naturally get revealed, and that will project in the near future in the form of reports. So with this, let me once again thank the authorities of the university, right from the Vice Chancellor, Hood, Registrar, the head of the department, Srinivasa Rao, T. Ashokan, and the associate professor of the department, and above all, Dr. V. Raju, and above all, in this scenario, like to thank my teachers right from my childhood studies to the peak of education, Professor K.V. Raman. So let me thank some of the people who introduced me to the site. Amarnath Ramakrishna, who invited me during first 2 seasons, and thereupon Ranjit and the State Department people, Deputy Director, Commissioner, given me a chance of associating with them to this minute. And in that scenario, I am traveling with them for the 7th season of contributing my effort, of all the efforts and the experience which I have gained from Madras University Archaeology Department. So in that scenario, I thank every one of the participants who have patiently listened to my voices of my experiences and patiently hearing it. Thank you. Thanks, one and all.
Thank you very much, sir. We are immensely benefited from your talk, certainly, I believe. You have given us a comprehensive picture on very complex and multidimensional civilization that was flourishing once in the Kilidi Valley, Kilidi River Valley. We are very happy. Before I take much of your time, I would like to leave it to the discussion. Before that, we have some questions written on the chat box. We would like to read to them to you.
Okay.
Read those questions to you. Then after that, I'll open it for the discussion.
Sure.
So the first.
பாறைகளில் காணப்படும் கோப்பைகள் எந்த காலத்தை சேர்ந்தவை?
You should not mistake. They are as cups or bowls.
விவசாயி PhD
அதான். We should not mistake.
Next.
Hello. Let me answer. Let me answer one after the other.
Please.
The participant has posed a question. The cups found on the rocks doesn't mean they are vessels. They are the impressions or the drilled portions stated as what we call cup marks. They should not be interpreted as bowls or vessels. And they have been made in order to shape the tools by the prehistoric man. Thank you.
Same person.
Sir, next same person. புதிய தொல்லியல் களங்கள் நினைவு சின்னங்களை கண்டுபிடிக்கும் போது அதனை பதிவு செய்வதற்கான ஆவணப்படுத்துதல் வழிமுறைகள் என்ன?
Wherever you go on exploration of tracing the prehistoric or protohistoric, early historical rudiments of the ancient habitation or any other settlement, you have to take photograph. And when you go to such places, be in touch with the local archaeological officers, either of the state or of the center. and having acquaintance with them or having visited such sites, you can remind them, and when they visit the sites, they will confirm. And as a result, these informations can be passed on to the journal aspect of it, which can appear in the Indian Archaeology Review Journal or the State Department Review Journal of the respective states. So this is how we have to project and publish these, what you call the archaeological procedures.
I think another question is asked by someone called Tamil _blood. Yeah, it's on the same thing only. So please tell the documentation method, how to document any archaeological evidence. What's the good method of documentation?
Yeah, good method. For example, when you travel from Madurai to Kizhadi, take the distance, make the distance, and take the geo coordinates of Kizhadi. Then after taking the geo coordinates, you can associate. If you happen to be an archaeologist and having been trained in archaeological exploration, you know the technique of collection of the vestiges found on the surface level. Because invariably, in all the undisturbed mounds and undisturbed settlement or burials, you will find the vestiges pertain to that age. By picking it up, you will be able to assess black and dead ware, beads, and coins. So all these things you can, before picking it up, you take photograph, in situ photograph. For example, if you find a coin, a Chola coin, medieval Chola coin on the surface, the moment you look at, immediately take photograph. Even with your mobile camera, you can shoot up. And if you have a small scale, that can also be placed in front of it. So this is how immediately we have to photo document. Then you can collect that material and keep it in a separate bag with the description of the geo coordinates or the spot. For example, in Kizhadi, if you happen to pick the coin very near a small temple called Mandaivali Amman. So make note of that spot very near or on the northern side of Mandavali Amman temple, say 1 meter or 1.5 meters or 10 meters. So such a distance, you can pick it up and write it in the cover and put it in the cover, so that you will have the specification of your find spot. When it is being taken to the senior archaeologists and experts, they will be able to give you the real provenance of such cultural deposition and expansion of the mound. Then you can take them to the experts.
Okay, sir. Now there are no more questions in the chat box. I'll ask the participants who wanted to ask the questions. You can speak.
Sure.
Speak and ask.
Sure.
Sir, question only.
Yes.
Sir, how C14 dating method inform about the period of Arctic rocks hits the culture?
Okay, see, as far as C14 is concerned, which was introduced by a scientist called Geiger counter, the machine, which the machine assesses the half-life span of carbon, which is present in every living entity. The moment any living organism, let it be a wood or an animal, dies, the carbon content C14 along with another isotope of carbon gets diminished of its natural weight to 50%. For getting it reduced, for example, if an animal dies, let me say here or today, so the carbon content, C14 content already present in the animal, which do not get shrinked, which exists in the same level or same gram. Let that animal contains 100 grams of C14 when it is live. When the animal dies, it gets reduced to 50 grams. For getting it reduced to half of its weight or content or quantity, it becomes, it takes 5,560 years, plus or minus 50 years. So this is repetitive, which takes once again the same number of years for getting it diminished to half of its half size. That is 100 grams to become 50 grams, it takes 5,560 years. Once again, that 50 grams of C14 to become 25 grams, that is 50% of 50 grams is 25 grams. To become 25 grams, it once again takes the same duration. So that's why our lifespan of C14 is very much useful in order to assess the potentiality and the dating of early historical sites right to the extent of 10,000 years before present. It's a scientific way of analysis.
Sir, another question. How could to understand the environmental state, the excavation of at Keeladi?
Environmental state.
Understand environmental state through the excavation at Keeladi.
Yes, because now we started interacting with the paleobotanist and the paleozoologist. So when we get the grains, pollen analysis, phytoliths, they will be sent to them. And from the laboratory experimentation, they will be able to assess. I'm talking of not the present setup. I'm talking of the earlier level of environmental ecological setting of Keeladi 2500 years before present. In a similar way, whenever we go to any site, let it be Keeladi, Agaram, Manalur, Kondari, Adichanalur, Kodumanal, or any site, we can readily look at the available flora and fauna and what are all the types of birds. So when we are able to assess these flora and faunal studies, and we will be able to relate and correlate the extinct variety of the faunal remains, say a few centuries earlier, they could have existed. And now they could not have survived in the present scenario. And similarly, ecological and ethno-archaeological aspects can also be studied. In some of the pockets, some tribal people, nomadic people could have lived there. So such features should also be incorporated in the current scenario as a continuation of the studies, along with archaeological studies, in order to support the anthropological, paleobotanical, and the current environmental studies and ecological studies.
The next one question.
Yeah.
What are the primary data? We can draw analyzing the.
To analyze.
What are the primary data we can draw through the editing the sculpture?
Can you repeat once again? It's not that much audible.
Primary data. The primary data?
Details.
We can draw. Details. We can draw through the edit, analyzing the sculpture.
Through analyzing the
sculpture.
See, paleozoologists or paleontologists will be able to say what type of a human being. For example, when we talk of the species of human race on Earth, Neanderthals, Australopithecus, Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Homo pithecus, these are all the varieties of human specimens which existed throughout. We all belong to Homo sapiens. Even the Homo sapiens, it had taken millions of years to come up. So when such is the scene, the paleontologists will be able to, on the look of the skull or the pelvic or the mortal remains of the skeleton, they will be able to assess. And apart from that, the genomic studies will naturally give to which DNA they belong, and they can rightly fit in to which clan of the world scenario and from which race they originate. For example, there is a popular study conducted by Professor Pichappan. Very recently he had done it and which had been accepted throughout. And here the name of the study is Virumandi. He had taken samples of the living people in and around Madurai and adjoining areas, Sivaganga district. And having tested the DNA, he had proved that majority of the samples he collected contained 135. That's the sample number of what you call, which is akin to a branch of the aborigines of the African tribal people, which existed 5 to 6 million years ago. So this is a branching of the aborigine. So from such branch, this could have come. So in that scenario, we will be able to have the detailed version of what you call the skeletal domain studies on genomics and ADN analysis.
Okay, sir. Well referenced, sir.
Yes.
Audience, any questions?
Sir, I am Murugan from Chidambaram Annamalai University. Srinivasan sir, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, I have a question, sir. Sir, we have been establishing the archaeology. KID excavation is the very ancient archive to the world civilization. But recently, I came across in a newspaper.
Yes. It's not audible.
Yes. Murugan, your mic is gone off.
Murugan, sir. Murugan, sir.
Anyway, if Sharon, sir, if the question is clear, you can say something.
No, he left half the way. I cannot predict and presume his question would be in order.
So let him come back. We'll take one other questions if there is any.
Sure.
Is there any other question?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
I am Dr. R. Subramanian from the Kolanjapur Government Arts College, Visachalam.
Okay, please.
It's a suggestion, one of the suggestion, clarify, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what is the similarities between the KID and Sivakalai excavation, sir?
Yeah. KID is an agrarian-based urban settlement supported by cottage industry. It is habitation. Sivakalai, majority of the excavation are concentrated on the burial site. It is an Iron Age burial site. And KID with one of its clusters at Kondagai. Here we have unearthed the urns and the pit burials. So in that way, Kondagai site can be correlated and compared to that of Sivakalai, or Sivakalai can be compared to that of this, and similar to that of Kodumanal and Andhra.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Murugan, sir, are you still there? And Murugan from Annamalai, are you still there? So if not, I think that's it.
Disconnected, sir. Murugan is disconnected.
Yeah. Well then, I'm very thankful to Dr. Razu for helping us to find a very excellent speaker on the issue that we wanted to talk about. Especially, we desperately wanted someone to speak about the KID because our students are lacking a very knowledge on the excellent civilization that was once existing. So, of course, it is trying to, the information on the civilization, the analysis on the civilization is helping us to rewrite the history, especially give some importance, pride and place to the South Indian civilization in history. So certainly, it helped us a lot to understand the complexity of the civilization, internal trade, external trade, the interoceanic trade, and in the pictorial graffiti and the lingua graffiti, a whole lot of history we came to know. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Certainly, if things get settled, we would like to call you to the department and listen to you in person. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So kind of you for the invitation. Definitely, I am to explain.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It seems Murugan has come back again.
Okay. So, Dr. Murugan, you wanted to ask the question that you wanted to?
Just I'd like to know this one. Sorry for the inconvenience happened to. because of me. And sir, actually, we have the opinion that Kiradi excavation is very ancient one.
Yeah.
But recently, I came across in the newspaper the Italian excavation had proved it is still very ancient to our Kiradi excavation. Is it true, sir?
See, one thing we should take into account. This is with regard to early historical site. So when we talk about the earliest civilization, they should compare on par with the Indus. They cannot compare 2,600 years or 3,000 at the maximum, 2,700 years. So Italian civilization, they should compare with 5,500 years Indus. So they should compare only with that. That is the first phase of urbanization. What we are talking about is the second phase of urbanization and its extension further deeper in the extreme portion of Peninsula region.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
There is also another class. Some people used to compare the Neolithic phase and state that we have unearthed or exposed the civilization which existed prior to KD with regard to Neolithic site. Neolithic is not a civilization. Neolithic is a phase of culture. But when we talk of civilization, you should have very many factors and parameters to consider as an urban civilization and urban factors. So in that scenario, KD comes in early historical phase, whereas Neolithic site is the Neolithic phase of culture.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Sir, sorry, I'm very, very, very thankful, sir, for giving me this opportunity again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so formally I have thanked you, but I just want to...
No problem, sir. Just I came just now after finishing this training class, election training class, so that this problem, sir.
No,
I have been listening, but
no problem.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Sharon sir,
Yes.
actually, when it comes to the archaeological excavations, Kiradi excavation seems to create some discomfort among some political dispensations. So why is so? What is disturbing to them? The historical evidence. What kind of historical evidence is disturbing them? So why there is political troubles being caused to the excavations carried out at Kiradi?
See, initially, the media people, some of them, not all, would have misinterpreted on par with the Indus date. That could be one of the... We should be very clear in our exposition of the dating is concerned based on scientific.
Yes.
Since the fourth season of excavation, we are very particular that the revealed structural remains are datable as early as 6th century BC. So we are confining to that date, and we do not want to project it as early as the early phase of Indus. So we should be very clear, and we should be very concrete in our what you call statements. So project in such way, every people, irrespective of various platforms, let it be political or social or religious or linguistic, they will definitely adhere to our statement and accept it immediately. So that is what is happening right now. Since fourth season, we have been sticking on to these norms based on scientific analysis, and we don't want to err in any part of misleading the data unearthed from KD.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have an idea, sir, about this one. Recent past, we could see the north-south cultural conflict as far as the language is concerned, and this cultural establishment through excavations. This is also one of the reasons for the political chaos and confusion.
Certainly, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Sharon sir. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. So kind of you for providing me the what you call virtual platform to share expertise to each and every one of you. So I am that much perplexed and happy to be amidst this August And
We are
I
very
thank
happy. We are very happy.
Dr. V. Raju.
Yeah.
When I like to
Sir,
thank him, when I like to thank him, I should thank Sivaram Lingam. It
Thank
is
you,
one
sir.
good